Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve. Welcome to Born to Achieve podcast, the show that inspires and motivates you to unlock your full potential and achieve your goals. With your host, Warren Andrew Pinder. Let's get started on this week's episode of Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve.
I am born to achieve, and so are you. Today we have as our guest Mr. Michael T. Brown, licensed professional counselor, has been empowering individuals, families, businesses, and communities with tremendous success for over 20 years. Michael serves as the principal of Brown's Leadership Counseling, which provides counseling support to individuals and families and consulting services to organizations and businesses. Michael also serves as a national trainer for the Y Pride LLC, one of the nation's leading resilient educational programs that specialized in student achievement. Michael also partnered with DC Office of Attorney General to serve as a trainer for their violence interrupter program since 2020. Michael ordered Born to Achieve in 2012, a beautiful challenge in 2017. In 2013, Michael hosted the Brown Bag with Michael T. Brown on Blog Talk Radio, interviewing key community difference makers and flashing the spotlight on the pertinent issues facing our society. Michael is committed to empowering others and communities through educational and inspirational mobilization. Michael also enjoys spending time with family and friends. Welcome, Mr. Michael T. Brown.
Thank you, sir. It's great to be on with you. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, great. This, as I said, for me was extremely interesting. And, when I heard that you would have penned a book called Born to Achieve. And Achieve Movement is a company based that we formed basically to try and find like-minded persons who would share their achievements in hopes that others may be inspired to do the same. And you were the first that before, because let me tell you a story about how we came about, this whole achievement. It was a vision that came to me in my sleep that I just kept seeing the word achieve. And through that, I developed a systematic concept using the acronyms of the word achieve, using A for taking action, C for charting a new course, direction, H for, identifying, removing the hurdles that may, be blocking you from doing something. The I for intensity, and E with, 100% effort always. And the V, of course, is the values that we based upon hard work, respect, manners. And of course, if we were to, follow all of those steps, we say that you'll earn whatever success you set out to do. So when we speak about finding like-minded persons, and there goes Michael T. Brown that wrote a book in 2012, Born to Achieve. So you meant to me. You tell me exactly what was your inspiration.
Well, first of all, Warren Andrew and Dominique, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on. What really provoked me to write Born to Achieve, I'd say in many ways was kind of a love letter to our youth. Part of my experience was as a school counselor. I spent many years as a school counselor in public schools. And over the years, I just learned and noticed a lot of nuggets that I picked up throughout the years and that people have poured into me that I wanted to be able to put into the hands of young people. So if you were to run into your nephew or a family member or even a younger version of yourself, if you could put something in a book that you could place into their hands that could give them some principles, some tools, some strategies, some things to think about. That's what the book really, that's what really drove me to write the book, is to have something that we could put into their hands, some reminders, some tools, some nuggets that could help them on their journey. As so many people poured into me that helped me on mine. That's coincidence? I think not that we meet today, right? It sounds serendipitous in many ways that we could link on this principle.
It's the same, because what we did in the book is try to get young men and women to unleash the power within to achieve their goals. We want them to understand that you are born to achieve greatness. And that, once you create that mindset, the mindset that regardless, nothing's going to stop you. You're going to take action. You're going to chart that course, remove the hurdles, and this is what we penned and said, just as you said, to give them a roadmap as to how we can do it. Wrote in the book that when you were a child, someone taught you to cross the street. So they would hold your hand and say to you, look left, you look right. If it's clear, then you go. And that's the roadmap, as simple as that is. That's the roadmap that we want to give to our young men and women in doing so. It's really enlightening. And as I may say, feeling this synergy with what you just said is so much. I must send you a copy of the book that we wrote, that I wrote, was actually called Achieve Men. All right. And that, it just, like I said, it uses the chapters just speak about taking actions, charting a course, and the examples and so forth are led toward what it is that you really takes to achieve. What success have you found? What did you find in 2012 to now? Tell me, because you could help me on this same journey that we're on, trying to inspire persons to believe that they're born to achieve greatness. How can we share this message? Let's double up and give them a double dose of how powerful that is.
Excellent question. What really stands out when you ask me that is two words, and that's purpose and passion.
Oh my.
Once we know why we're here, when we realize, right, that we were created on purpose for a purpose, it's a game changer. And that's not just vocational, right, but just in our daily lives. We understand, right, that we should operate with purpose and intention. And then once we know what we're here for and we're learning what we're here for, once we get excited about it and really tap in emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and get excited about that purpose, get excited about that vision, to know why we're here and then be excited about why we're here, in many ways is the foundation, the core, I believe, of success. But I think really we have to look at that definition of success, right? And how we view success. I think one of the best definitions of success, right, is what we do for others. There's a spiritual teaching that says the greatest among you, right, shall be servant. Now, a lot of times when we think about service, some people may look at that as more of a less than position. But I think when we're emotionally involved in trying to make others great, help them find their purpose and help them find their passion, we become great along the way. So what success have I found? I would say that's been a core principle of mine, is to help others reach their greatness. And then as a counselor, as a therapist, or just as a person, that's my North Star in many ways, is that my goal is to help other people reach their goal. And I think that's a nice place to plant our flag, is to say, you know what, I want to help others to achieve. And oh, by the way, success then seems to get poured onto us as we help others reach their goal.
As you help others.
Thank you for joining today's podcast. We'll be right back.
Achieve Man, written by Warren Andrew Pinder and Dominique Bradford. This book passionately focuses on the challenges women have been made to go through and how to overcome them. In some cultures, being a woman disadvantages the girl child. This book carefully exposes the hurdles you might face. This masterpiece is the ultimate self-help guide for women. It reveals your true purpose and identity. Get your copy today. Available from Amazon.
We now return to today's podcast.
I often say that help is wealth. I believe that truly. My personal purpose is to help and teach others to identify their purpose and to communicate, that they learn to communicate exactly that, to build godly character. And it just explains exactly all that you just said, that helping others is very important. Sometimes it's hard not to say no when you believe that is your purpose you want to fulfill the purpose of teaching and helping others, that they may, feel the same way. And it's all about the mindset, changing the mindset and getting them to understand. Not a lot of persons can you can tell me that accept the fact that you're giving up yourself. Like volunteerism today in this society is basically done. But let's just speak a moment, right? I want you to speak to that a moment. How purpose? Because I've been and I've spoken to a lot of people, and that's where my space is. Trying to develop and get people to understand that you were born to achieve greatness. Let's start with that. Let's start with that being your purpose. How would you, what advice would you give someone to really tap into the feeling of knowing that, yeah, you may be on your back, but you can rise. You can rise because truly you're born to be great.
Yeah. I think it starts with desire, right? A certain amount of God-given desire to want to achieve. And sometimes we have to deal with whatever you talked about, hurdles, right? The H in achieve standing for hurdles. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we got to go to where those hurdles are and address those things, right? Yeah. An infant who comes into this world, right, comes in many ways as a blank sheet, a canvas. But we know along that life, along the timeline of that child's life, they're going to run into some challenges. We all are going to run into some challenges, some adversity that's going to want to interrupt our purpose or distract us or knock us off track from it. So sometimes we have to go and deal with those hurdles, whether it was pain or trauma, whether it was things that we should have gotten as a child that we did not get as a child. And that's where understanding that sometimes we need help. It's okay to ask for help, whether that's going to therapy, whether that's having a mentor, a coach, whether it's doing things that are going to help us to help ourselves. Because we can show up to the party, right, and say, well, everybody's born to achieve. Everybody's born to be great. Well, we got to sometimes go back and deal with what blocked that path in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where the village can help, right? The African principle, probably, it takes a village to raise a child, right? And in that village, we need trusting adults who can come alongside, who see potential in us and say, you know what? Let's go back and try to address some of the pain or the trauma that might have got you off course. Now, we know we can't change what happened to us in life, but we can change how we respond to what happens to us. We can get help. We can get therapy. We can connect with people who can help us reach our goals. So I think it starts with desire, right? And understanding where the hurdles are, and then being intentional about addressing those hurdles.
That's that I. Yeah. Yeah, that's what we say. You have to be intentional that giving up yourself, that's the start. Once you have in your mind said that, you know what, this is what I believe in. This is what I'm going to achieve. This is my purpose. This is what I believe that I was born to be, or I was born to leave. This is my legacy. Understanding that persons would know that I've helped someone to identify their purpose. So, do you think it's a common thread for persons seeking their purpose to start? Where would you say to them? Where would you tell them to start?
Great question. I think that's such a commonly asked question. What's my purpose? And I like the analogy I think I saw in a video where somebody said, discovering your purpose is kind of like trying new foods. Sometimes you got to try enough stuff, right, to know what you like and what you don't like, right?
Right.
So we talking, is it career-wise? Sometimes we need to look at where our skills lie. What are we passionate about? As I think about, being when I was a high school guidance counselor, one of the key questions I would ask our youth is, what would you do for a career if money were not an issue? If you could wake up and just do what you absolutely loved every day, what would you choose for a career then? And I think that's a great place to start. What do you love? What are you naturally drawn to? Is it electronics? Is it mathematics? Is it the helping professions? Is it, finance? Is it nursing? Whatever it is, And then, so there's some skills inventory you can go through and use the technology, right? Do a skills survey where you go through and they'll ask you questions about where your natural gifts and interests lie. And that can give you some feedback on where you may line up more with your purpose vocational. And to also remind people that it's okay to go along the journey of purpose. Purpose might not be, I've achieved, I've arrived. No, I'm still on that path, right? We're still on that path. Maybe I think about you guys starting this podcast. And I don't know your story about how you started the podcast, but maybe you had an idea of, I want to help people. How can I use the technology? Who do I bring along? And then now here we are, right? So it starts with an idea. It can start with uncertainty, but that desire and the willingness to go down the road of, how do I discover my purpose? How do I get on that journey, right? So we see purpose in many ways as a journey. Not many people are in the same career for 50 or 60 years. Sometimes there's some ebbs and flows. We have to go down different paths that lead us there. But if we're lined up spiritually, right? If we think about it being a person of faith, God, you tell me what you want me to do. It's one thing for me to say what I want. God, where do you want me? What lane do you want me in? And then when we lock in spiritually, and then God starts downloading things to us, and he says, go here, go there, try this, get this education, get this skills, get this expertise. So we can't leave that part out of it. We can have the desire, but are we willing to get the training, the tutelage? Are we willing to put the time commitment into it, right? So all those things, when I think they come together, can put us on that path, that journey towards purpose.
So all that you're speaking about there, that's that little birdie in the back of your head telling you that, you could be great at, you just say you're a CPA and you have an excellent career path going on, but something's just nagging you every morning. You just wake up and you said, you know what? I just love cooking these pastries or something. It just always goes to it. That passion, the passion that takes you, and persons will understand. But why did you go from a CPA to baking and opening that bakery? And a lot of people, it's not driven by money, but rather the love and passion for what it is.
You think about somebody who may not have a quote unquote high profile job, but they use their job as a platform to impact lives.
Exactly.
Right? Where they might not have the lofty title, but they got the keys that can let you in the door. They, grandmama, auntie, right, might not have had the great title, but they loved the people in the community and they showed up for others. They were a servant. They understood that, that village can lead to greatness when they see themselves as a part of something bigger than just themselves. That in many ways, right, can tie into purpose and passion and achievement.
Definitely. We speak of the village and the environment that you come from. It often said that, you're a product of your environment. If you're in an environment that is not conducive, is it possible to really find your purpose?
I believe it is. Matter of fact, I believe that tough environment could be a catalyst to finding the purpose. Some purpose is discovered in difficulty, in adverse circumstance. Matter of fact, that's where often, for example, great businesses thrive, when there's a need.
Yeah.
So if you're walking in your neighborhood, if you're in your community, if you're on your island, you're like, you know what? I'm frustrated that we don't have a coffee shop here. Maybe you're the one intended to build one. Or you may say, you know what? I'm online watching YouTube, but I'm not hearing the conversations that I really want to have. Let's start a podcast, right? So from necessity, right, in many ways is the mother of invention. So from difficult circumstances, from adverse conditions, that's where we can find those diamonds in the rough. Sometimes that's the prerequisite one, is adversity. There's a term in Stoicism that says adversity is the way.
Exactly.
That the only way we get to Success Avenue is to go down Adversity Street, because there's going to be some things birthed on Adversity Street that's going to enable us to take that exit ramp to success.
Thank you for joining today's podcast. We'll be right back.
Achieve Man, written by Warren Andrew Pinder and Dominique Bradford. This book passionately focuses on the challenges women have been made to go through and how to overcome them. In some cultures, being a woman disadvantages the girl child. This book carefully exposes the hurdles you might face. This masterpiece is the ultimate self-help guide for women. It reveals your true purpose and identity. Get your copy today. Available from Amazon.
We now return to today's podcast.
So no one has an excuse. We're saying that you're born to achieve greatness, right? And I coined that question to you just basically to let our listeners know that no one has an excuse. You may not have the support, but if you really have the desire and you feel that passion, you are able because you were born to achieve greatness.
There's I really like the principle that says, I call it the fault responsibility principle. And for somebody may be listening out there today, I want you to think about this. It might not be your fault why you got where you are, but it is our responsibility to respond.
Oh, yeah.
It might not be your fault, the pain, the abuse, the trauma that you went through, but it is our responsibility, right? Once we know better, to say, let's do better. And it's okay to ask for help along that journey. You're right, excuses won't get us where we need to get. But once we're self-aware and we take responsibility, then we can go to work on that success plan. And I can imagine there's somebody out there who's listening right now who says, you don't know my story. I hear you, born to achieve greatness. That's great. But somebody may be saying, right, I need a ladder to get there. And I encourage somebody, even who's listening, to use these words as a ladder to say, you know what? What's my next best step? Who can I reach out to? What can I search online? What can I take from this conversation as a linchpin, as a catalyst to move me from where I am to where I want to go? Maybe we have to do something new. Somebody may have to do something out of the box. And if somebody's listening and hearing this today, step out on faith. Step out on faith and well, I heard it put this way, the fruit is out on the limb. So sometimes we got to step out on faith, right? And try something new, do something different.
Or stay hungry. You want the fruit. You
Absolutely.
God, you look at the limb might be slim.
That's right. You got to be hungry enough, right? But see why you're going to have to get out. That's right.
It's gonna bend. It's gonna shake. You might be fair. It's scary, but you got to step out and go get that fruit.
Isn't it interesting, Warren, Andrew, and Dominique, right? That sometimes when you make the decision, and maybe you guys can relate to this personally, where you didn't know how it was all going to play out, but because you just stepped out on that idea, oftentimes people will see that step of faith and then they just start wanting to help. Isn't that interesting how resources start coming, opportunities, because God starts sending you people, and then things just start to happen.
It just works. It works itself out. And it's so funny. Until you really understand your purpose, right? When you become solid on what you believe, that's when you can say no. That's when you're able to say no. This is you're doing what you love. You've become self-actuated and understand that my purpose is to do what I believe, or lead me to the achievement that I'm working toward to succeed.
That's right.
And that's the beauty of finding your purpose, that you become contented, right? Or you become so forceful in your ability to acquire the success that you truly desire.
What really stands out as you say that, and that's time. One of your principles you talked about early, you talked about not making excuses. Sometimes I think we get tricked into this idea that we have so much time on our hands to figure this out. Time matters. we think so sometimes we can put so much emphasis on money, and it has its place, right? We need, resources to be able to do things. But we can get more money, but we can't get more time.
Yeah.
So time matters. So when God pricks your heart, or if you feel led to do something, I'm not talking about being rushed or just, moving out recklessly. No, but to know better, we need to act on it when we know it. So timing matters. It's okay to step out on faith and take the time to step out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Goals, right? When we're speaking of goals and how important. So like that's a take from when we're talking to some young men, young women, and they don't really know exactly what they're setting the goals, and they are living for the moment, believing that they have all the time and that they can do everything that they see others doing because of social media and other spaces that they may not be interested in identifying that purpose. Speak to them of the importance of, like you said, time and starting now at a young age to develop and grow into your purpose.
Great question. My thought is be willing to do privately what you want to be seen eventually publicly. Great things are often built in private. Social media has its place. Advertising, marketing has its place. Getting your shine, I get it. It has its place. But oftentimes great things are birthed privately. Be willing to put the time and the energy, effort in privately. So you might not be out steady posting what you're doing. You may be building the product. You may be doing the work behind the scenes that are going to promote you publicly. You think about winning a championship in sports. Everybody, all the teams want to hold that trophy at the end. But it's oftentimes the work that's done in the summer, the tour days, the flights in and out of different cities and the journey to greatness. That might not get a lot of likes or a lot of retweets or a lot of views. But if you keep putting the work in, if the principles are there, if the vision is there, you getting your shine and you getting public acknowledgement, you won't have to worry about public acknowledgement if you build the product, if you put the work in. I heard this a while back. I really like it. It says, decide what you want to be, a workhorse or a show pony.
Yeah.
Right? The workhorse realizes that when you add value to others, you won't have to worry about shine. When you add value to others, your name will be okay in the long run. Put the work in and get the results.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Born to Achieve. We hope you found it informative, inspiring, and motivating. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family. Stay focused on your goals, and we'll see you on the next episode of Born to Achieve.
Take advantage of this incredible opportunity. Sign up today and claim your free ebook at www.borntoachievegreatness.com. Follow us on Facebook at Achieve Movement Inc. Get your copy of Exploring Achieveland, A Journey to Realize Your Dreams, Motivational Stories of Kindness, Inspiring Stories for Kids on Amazon and Kindle.